Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to our Employee Town Hall, and welcome to the 2020-2021 academic year. Students are already moving in, and classes begin a week from today. For those of you who may not know, my name is Jim Duffy, and I am an Associate Dean in our College Life Office. I will be moderating today's session. Please know that we are recording this session so that we can make it accessible to those who could not join us today. Our aim for this town hall is to update employees about our planning so that you can be fully informed about our plans for the semester ahead. Various Gettysburg College employees and our health consultant are joining us on the call today. To begin, I'll introduce each panelist. Once all panelists have been introduced, I will turn the meeting over to President Iuliano for introductory remarks. We will also be taking questions from the audience. Participants can submit questions anonymously through the Q&A feature. Names will not be read. Let's get started. We are pleased to have 10 panelists joining us today. Bob Iuliano, President of Gettysburg College. Julie Ramsey, Vice President of College Life and Dean of Students. Jim Biesecker, Executive Director of Facilities Planning and Management. Richard Keeling, Chairman and Senior Executive Consultant of Keeling and Associates. Jennifer Dixon, Director of Research and Consultant at Keeling and Associates. Peter North, Director of Auxiliary Services. Rod Tosten, Vice President for Information Technology. Chris Zappe, Provost of Gettysburg College. Mike Mattia, Executive Director of Intercollegiate Athletics and Campus Recreation. And Darrien Davenport, Assistant Secretary of the Board of Trustees and Assistant Vice President of College Life. Panelists, thank you for your time today. I would now like to turn the meeting over to President Iuliano for opening remarks. President Iuliano.
Thank you, Jim, and let me echo Jim's enthusiastic greeting to all of you and the acknowledgement that we are about to begin the most unusual year. I said that last year, this year even more so, the most unusual year in the college's history. I want to thank you all for getting together with us today. As Jim said, this is an opportunity for us to outline the plans that we have been working hard on for the fall and to answer some of your questions. It's early days here, but we've had students coming back since last Friday. Our testing system is working more efficiently than we thought and we'd hoped it was going to be. That's wonderful. And I'm also happy to report that there have been no positive cases from the students that we have tested thus far. So things are off to a good start. Before jumping in and going in through the panelists to a description of the work that we've done over the course of the summer leading up to the fall, I thought I'd offer a few preliminary thoughts. First, it's really been too long since we have had students walking the grounds of this campus and giving to this place the energy and dynamism that they give. We are here fundamentally because of our students. We are here fundamentally because we believe in the importance of the residential liberal arts model, what it does to help prepare students, including to make sense of the many issues we've seen presented to society by events like COVID-19. How do you think about the economic, the political, the social, the cultural impact? We've been having conversations nationally and will on this campus this fall about questions of racial justice. We have an upcoming presidential election. Being together in the residential liberal arts model that we take seriously gives us the means to tackle those questions in ways that simply isn't possible if we are not together. And so we have organized this fall under the banner of Better Together. And it's more than just a few words. It really is a statement of philosophy about who we are and how we do things most effectively. If we want to graduate students who are going to make a difference in the world, it starts here by the education we give them, by the opportunities we provide them, and by a recognition and awareness that they learn better being together, having proximity to our faculty, to each other, and to us. And so my first point is my excitement about welcoming students back and an acknowledgement and a recognition that it is fundamental to what we do and who we are. The old saying that actions speak louder than words applies here quite fully. Chris Zappe will say more about this in a moment, but we gave our students an authentic choice about how they wanted to come back in the fall. We recognize that some people may not want to, or because of economic dislocation, perhaps could not come back. And so they could take courses remotely. They could take a gap semester. We've extended the commuter radius. I want to let you know that the vast majority of our students are coming back residentially. That is a statement by them about what they believe they need to be prepared for the world that awaits, and understanding that they will learn more by being here together. And understanding that what we did last semester, and I want to again credit the response of the community, which was nothing short of phenomenal, as we pivoted to remote education and remote work and remote learning. But it was also a recognition on the part of our students that for as good as that was, or as hard as people worked, it wasn't quite the same as being together. And so part of what we're seeing by the 2,500 and some odd students who are coming back this week, it is a statement by them that they want to be here. They understand that they will learn more by being here, that they will be better prepared by being here. Speaking more personally, I'm now sitting in Penn Hall, and I know that I feel better about being back on campus, being able to see one another and engage with my fellow Gettysburgians in ways that we just can't do remotely. To be sure, we'll talk about this over the course of this morning. It's going to be different the way we interact, social distancing, masks, and the like. But here too, I think we are better together. Second point I want to make is simply a thank you. We would not be where we are in our planning if it were not for the efforts, not only of the panelists that you will hear from today, but the hundreds of other people who have helped make this work, who helped make the pivot in the spring work, who will help make this fall work effectively. And so let me just say thank you. Thank you for doing what you do to help make sure that our students get the education that they deserve. For those of you who are impacted by reduced hours in the spring and the summer, I know this has been a challenging period for many of you, and I'm also glad to welcome you all back to the campus. The work ahead for us isn't going to be easy, nor is it over, but I do think I am confident in the ability of this campus to do what it has done so often, and that is to rise to the occasion, to look out for one another, to support one another, and to make sure that we focus on what we do and do so well, and that is to educate our students. If someone could bring me to slide 3, that would be great. So this is a slide you all, I think, have seen before, and these have been the principles that have informed us from the outset of our decision-making in the spring when we decided to pivot, throughout the summer as we've thought about a return to residence. Over the course of the next hour and a half, we'll touch on these principles in various respects, and so I'm not going to spend much time on them now, but I do want to focus on health and safety, because I know it's something that is on your mind, given the spikes that we have seen in cases in the South and the West, and the fact that some other schools recently have decided that maybe coming back residentially isn't right for them. From the outset, we have asked one fundamental question, and that is, can we responsibly return to residence? It is a question that we ask ourselves every time the President's Council meets, which is far more often than it ever has, at least in my brief time on campus. And it is the question that has informed the work that we have undertaken over the course of the summer. And you will hear from the panelists about why we have concluded that we can responsibly return to campus. By now, we all know Dr. Anthony Fauci well. He is the long-serving head of the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. He was recently quoted on CNN in an article that I saw, and let me quote here. And this was about the capacity of colleges and universities to return safely to the residential model. He said, if done properly, and again, by which he means a return to college campuses, it would not be a risk. But then again, you have to be careful when you get people coming in from the outside. He goes on to say, but I think if they maintain the guidelines that are put in place, For people coming back together, they should be fine. He underscored the importance of testing and quarantining. You'll hear more about that from Julie Ramsey, Dr. Keeling, and others today. Let me again offer some highlights about health and safety. At every step along the way, we have been informed by medical and public health professionals. You'll hear from Dr. Keeling and his associates later today. They have been invaluable partners in making sure that we are doing the best we can to address the public health issues. Johns Hopkins has been just a remarkable resource for us and for all of higher education in outlining a variety of steps that colleges and universities should bear in mind as they return to campus. We have followed those as guidelines throughout our process. We have not cut corners. We have spent millions of dollars beyond what was budgeted to bring back students as responsibly as we can. As I walked the campus today, I saw the tents that are up. You'll see signs throughout campus. We have converted the Gettysburg Hotel into residential student space. We've done so much more than that, some of which you'll hear about today. And at every step along the way, we have been asking the questions of our public health and medical professionals, what can we do to do this as responsibly as we can? And their answers have informed the steps that we have taken. We're doing more testing than was recommended at the outset by national public health experts. You'll hear about this. We're going to test every student when they come in. We're going to test them again a week or so later. We're going to engage in regular testing. Testing, quarantining, as you heard from Dr. Fauci, they are the essential steps to an effective return to campus, and we have taken that seriously. It will not surprise you, you have heard about this already, that we've also adopted a host of new policies this year. Policies that will require all of us to wear masks, require all of us to engage in physical distancing. Julie will say more in a moment about the agreement that we've asked students to sign, but we ourselves, the employees, need to follow these rules as well. We need to do it as a matter of good public health. We also need to do it to model for our students what we want from them as well. And we know this, and it's something I have underscored to our students, that masks and physical distancing matter enormously in preventing the transmission of this disease. There's a video that was circulating that we're probably going to try to get our students to see of a person who did some experiments that demonstrated just how powerfully masks and physical distancing work in preventing the spread of this disease. So folks, you're going to hear about this again today. Take those expectations seriously, model what we want from our students, protect one another. We will continue to watch the evolution of the virus. We're paying very careful attention to what's happening in Adams County. We're obviously going to be paying very careful attention to what happens as we test our students and we observe the behaviors on campus. And we're going to be asking ourselves the same question that led up to the return to the fall, which is, can we continue to stay in residence responsibly? If at some point we come to the view that we cannot, we will pivot. And in fact, the faculty worked throughout the summer to be ready for such a pivot pedagogically if that were necessary. Slide 4 you see in front of you. These were conditions that we have been paying attention to in returning to residence. It will also be the factors that will help inform whether we should leave residential status. Federal, state, county regulations, as you know, at this point, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has Adams County in the green state, meaning that we are able to return to our residential model. There are some work-related restrictions that we're honoring as well. Dr. Keeling will say more about the virus assessment, both on campus in Adams County and more broadly. The thrust of today's presentation will be on mitigation strategies, the steps that we are taking to reduce the likelihood of an outbreak on campus. Student, family, faculty receptivity. I said a moment ago that the overwhelming percentage of our students are coming back because they believe in the model. They have now had town halls in which they've heard, together with their families, the protocols that we're putting in place. They support those as well. The vast majority of our courses are going to be taught either in person or through some hybrid model, which is a statement on behalf of the faculty. The higher education landscape is shifting in some ways that we are watching carefully, but the vast majority of liberal arts colleges are coming back residentially, as are we. Recently, there have been some other colleges that have made some decisions to revert back to a remote educational platform. We're paying attention to that judgment, but always with an eye towards what are we doing here? What are the conditions on our campus that permit us to return to residence? I'm going to turn this over to Darrien next, but let me say, oh, next slide, please. We talked about the Johns Hopkins factors. We've boiled them down to these 4 factors and are addressing them systematically through our planning process, and you'll hear them referenced during the course of today. I'm going to turn this over to Darrien, but before so, let me just end with 2 final thoughts. A year into my presidency, I've said this now on more occasions than I can count, the thing that most impresses me is the sense of community that defines this college. That sense of community is going to be present this fall as we advance the mission of this college in giving our students the education that they want, that they need, and I frankly believe that our society needs if we're going to tackle the many profound questions that face society. But that call on community is also going to be important just simply in the way in which we look out for one another. The way in which the public health issues are not just about protecting ourselves, but they're about protecting each other. So we come back together this fall as a community because it's important for who we are, but we also come back as a community to look out for one another. And my confidence in the systems that we have for the fall derive in part from recognizing that that is a defining aspect of who we are, that we look out for one another. And I know we will do so this fall. Darrien, with that, over to you.
Thanks, President Iuliano. Next slide, please. First, family, I want to just send positive energy as we get ready for the semester. It's great to see so many folks virtually, so thanks for coming out. I wanted to take a moment to revisit the Return to Work program that we have. For those who haven't had a chance to see it, it is on the website. If you click on the landing page's Better Together link, on the left-hand side, there's a link for Return to Work. So if you want to see the full plan, please feel free to hop on the website and do so. Again, this morning, I just want to go through a few things at a higher level to discuss Return to Work as we prepare to get ready for the fall semester. The first piece has to do with daily health checks. Daily health checks are required for employees. If you look on the website, there are a list of things that we would like folks to look out for, a range of new symptoms, temperature, different things like that. We would like for folks before they actually come to work to do some daily checks. Those are required. There's also a list and direction as far as if you see one of the symptoms that are new symptoms, what you should do. There's a list there clearly outlined. We definitely want you to review that. Contact your medical provider if you feel symptomatic and follow those steps. Again, one of the things that you will hear not only today, but throughout the academic year and beyond is health and safety. And in order for us to navigate this effectively as a community, we're going to need to do the things necessary to keep one another safe. So please do those daily health checks. Please look at the symptoms. If you identify new symptoms, please get in contact with your medical provider. Those are very important. The next bullet really discusses on-campus versus working remotely. Earlier in the summer, when we brought this up, we talked about 2 things: the ability to be flexible, but also the ability to have the ability to have coverage and to live up to the mission of our institution. And that's going to be a delicate balance, but one that we will have to do as a community. The first piece is listed here as schedules and coverage. We want to encourage people to, when they can, and in the attempt to de-densify, but needing coverage, to revisit how they cover their offices, how they provide access and coverage for the students that are going to be there. We realize folks' circumstances may require them or they may need to work remotely. We ask that those individuals work with their supervisors to provide that second bullet, which is individual flexibility. I understand, I'm hearing that school districts right now are all over the board as far as decisions regarding folks going back to school. Again, we understand that people have individual situations. The power of our community is our ability to be able to communicate through them and through those processes to make sure that we do have some individual flexibility, but we're also providing coverage. So again, division heads, I know different departments, I've had folks send me plans directly as far as what they've done, which is phenomenal. They're looking at schedules differently. They're looking at how they staff differently, expanding hours, maybe depending on needs, starting a little earlier, working a little later. But again, let's look at this and try to be flexible. Let's innovate our way through this to be able to provide as much coverage as possible, but also have some flexibility, realizing that our students are back, right? And we're ready to be here and be available to them. The third thing I want to hit on is sick leave policy. I know we've received questions from folks that, if I take a test and I have to wait a week or 2 weeks, or if I'm just ill, what do I have available to me? Earlier in the summer, Human Resources sent out direction letting employees know that if you need to go into the negative for your sick leave, you can go into the negative 80 hours, which is two weeks, right? So we do have that available, offering some flexibility for expanded sick leave in that capacity. Third bullet, campus mask policy. About 2 weeks ago, there was an email sent from Human Resources regarding the campus mask policy. I'm not going to go through that, but at the end of the day, when folks are on campus, we want to make sure that you're wearing your mask, except for some of the exceptions that we actually had listed. Things like if you're eating, whether it's indoors or outdoors, you want to make sure that you, of course, take your mask off, right? Operating college equipment. So there are things there that are exceptions. However, and again, I'm going to keep reinforcing it. We have to keep each other safe. And one of the biggest ways of keeping each other safe is keeping our mask on when we need to keep our mask on, except for the exceptions that are listed there. Along with that, we realize that there may be some concerns regarding ADA. I would encourage folks, please reach out to Human Resources, work with Jen Lucas, work with Regina Campo, work with all the folks in there to see how we can accommodate you if you do have ADA concerns as it relates to your campus mask. And we will work as hard as we can to try to accommodate that. So please feel free to reach out. It is really important. And we'll work with you, okay? We'll definitely work with you on those concerns. Fourth bullet is creating a safe workspace. And in those two pieces, first, hopefully by now, everyone here or when you receive this message should have gotten an email from Safe Colleges regarding the two modules, learning modules. One was about COVID, another one was about cleaning your workspace. Receive those modules and have completed those modules. And if you haven't, please make sure you complete them before you come back to campus. But again, those modules help to educate, to help create a safe work environment. And again, there are things that are listed in the return to work plan, but the one piece, workplace cleanliness, is a must. Our facilities crew has done a phenomenal job getting cleaning supplies to folks across campus. Please clean your workspaces every day. Your mask, your mouse, your keyboard, if you have one, those different spaces, doorknobs to your office. If you don't have an office, but you occupy space where you're in there and touching things, please clean those things at the end of the day, every day. I had someone ask me, they said, Darrien, what about the beginning of the day? The more the merrier, okay? The more you decide you want to clean, whether it's coming in or going out, we encourage you to do so. Again, we have to do this together to keep one another healthy and safe. Meetings and gatherings. We are encouraging folks to keep your meetings virtual if at all possible. Keep those gatherings virtual if at all possible. One of the great things, and I've heard folks say, D, I feel like I work harder now virtually. Okay, I get it. If you can do that, if you can meet virtually, continue to meet virtual, continue to gather in a virtual space. One of the things that has been great as far as working in Zoom is that it works, right? It's been a great experience for a lot of folks. They've had the chance really to be effective through these Zoom meetings. We're having one right now, and there's 317 other members of our beautiful community on this, right? So use the technology, use the things that are available to you. IT has done a phenomenal job getting folks set up and having access to those things. So please continue. If you can do so, if at all possible, please continue to meet virtually. It will help, again, as we attempt to keep one another safe and keep our distancing. Two pieces here with the personal travel and the business travel. For those folks who have seen Pennsylvania's website, we have 22 states now listed on the website that are on the recommended list. If you should come back in quarantine, all right? First, with the personal travel policy, and about 2 weeks ago, HR sent information out regarding personal travel and as well as employee travel. The personal travel piece, let me hit on that really quickly. If you find yourself personally wanting to travel to one of those states that are listed or an area that has a high rate of COVID, and you come back to Pennsylvania, if you can work from home, if you can work remotely for those 2 weeks and kind of self-quarantine in that way, that's ideal, right? However, we realize that not everybody in their roles or capacities has the ability to be able to do that. And what we ask is that if your job does not allow you to work remotely and you have to come to campus to work, we want you, again, to keep the self-monitoring of those symptoms. Make sure you clean everything. Wherever you go, please make sure you clean it, use whatever facilities has provided to you, and monitor yourself. Again, we realize that folks are in different places and spaces as far as their ability to work remotely if they travel to those states. But again, for personal travel, please be cognizant of where you're going. Please look at because it changes, right? Look at the state's website as far as the states that are listed on there. If you have any questions about personal travel, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or the human resources team, and we'll be able to walk through it with you. We've already had employees that have asked questions about that. So again, we're here if you have questions relating to personal travel. Business travel, employees who wish to travel on behalf of the college must receive approval first from their divisional head or the academic divisional dean. And if you're going on business travel, there's actually a link in the college's website where you need to register that travel. So it's very important. Make sure you let us know where you're headed, if it's on behalf of business, so we can help to manage that piece. The last piece has to do with visitation. And again, we sent this information out. There was a lot to hit, but I just want to touch on a few points. Visitors will be limited to those who are on campus and support the academic, administrative, or residential missions of the college. And those folks must be approved either by an academic department chair, director, or vice president. And we want to make sure that folks follow state and federal protocols and all the guidelines that are posted around the college, right? For those who have been at the college, you've seen things on doors, on floors. Make sure you follow those guidelines. Make sure you have your visitors follow those guidelines. Anyone who's a visitor wishing to come to campus must do a self-check. They must do a self-check prior to their visit, all right? And also, any visitor that's planning to come to the campus building or facility, they must go on and complete a visitor registration form. They must fill that out before they come to campus. Next slide, please. So a few other things here before I pass it on to my colleague, Chris Zappe. First, employee health and well-being. I know we've had a couple questions come up in the chat about testing. We realized, in the beginning when we were going through this process and up until now, things have changed, right? Access in our community has changed as far as the number of days that it takes to turn over a test. And we hear you, we understand. So what we're looking at is reviewing the policy as it relates to employee testing. And we'll have more information about it later on this week. There are legal aspects about it. There are capacity pieces with it. It is very layered. And one of the things we want to make sure is do this right and well, right? So we're looking at this further and we'll be in contact with folks regarding testing for employees. But again, it's something we're researching and we are paying attention to what's happening when it comes to testing and the availability of testing in the community. Employees in contact tracing, currently HR is overseeing the contact tracing process. That will be shifted to a different process where we'll have an online tool and we'll work through a contact tracing process with folks out of Julie's unit. Employee notification of positive cases. We will notify employees if they're part of a contact tracing process. And that will be pretty much it as far as notification, and we'll keep keep up with that type of information there. We won't be sending an email blast every time that there's a positive. However, there will be information that's listed on the website, and that information will be updated constantly. So if you want information about community testing, cases, different things like that, I definitely want to direct you to the website. PPE and safety precautions, again, and Jim Biesecker might touch on this later, we're providing PPE as it relates to folks' jobs. We're making sure that you have the adequate protective equipment to do your work effectively, okay? We want to keep people as healthy and safe as possible. Community responsibility and reporting. We've had some folks ask about, hey, if I see someone that doesn't have their mask on, or if they're not abiding by the expectations of the college, what do I do? We would encourage folks, if they're comfortable, to have a conversation. If you see someone that you know or don't know, that's a colleague, and they don't have their mask on and they should, ask them, say, hey, would you mind putting your mask on? If you don't feel comfortable, or if you feel like things are maybe out of your control, send that information to hr@gettysburg.edu, and then we will follow up on those situations. Again, that's the mechanism that you'll use if people are not, doing what they need to do as far as compliance. And the last piece, which Julie will touch on later, we're in the process of creating an on-call and backfill response team. We realize that, COVID is high attention. We're going to need to provide a lot of focus on what's going on campus as it relates to COVID, but we also need the people to help support that, right? Again, the way that this goes is our community's ability to make it go. So we're working with Julie Ramsey and her team and the implementation team to develop an on-call and backfill response team, just to make sure that we have one another covered throughout this process. So that's my piece with, I'll now send it to Chris Zappe, who will provide more information.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you today. I'd like to give you some information about student choices as well as faculty choices as we prepare for the start of the academic year. You might be interested in knowing that, as President Iuliano pointed out earlier, many of our students, the large majority, are returning to residence this fall. However, roughly 38 students have decided to take a gap semester or a gap year. This may involve an experience, in another, internationally or in other parts of the country. There are 187 students who will be learning remotely. This is a choice that they've made, probably due to personal circumstances, some of which may be complicated by international travel, but 37 first-year students are included among that 187, and 43 international students will be studying remotely this year. We also have about 6 first-year students among 28 students who will be commuting back and forth, those who live within a 60-mile radius of the campus. So we'll have some students who will actually be commuting and learning on campus this fall. Next slide. So I want to try to explain for those who are not faculty members about how instruction will be delivered this year. It turns out that on-campus in-person instruction and on-campus blended instruction are the dominant forms of instruction this fall semester. Roughly 74% of the course sections that will be offered will involve in-person or a blending of in-person and blended instruction. So when we talk about blending, we're saying there'll be times where the faculty member will be in the classroom, and then there'll be times when they do some instruction online. So it's a bit of a mix. So we'll have a large proportion of our faculty teaching and delivering courses that way. I'll point out that there are roughly about 23% of the fall sections that will be offered completely online. These are being offered online because either the faculty member has a vulnerability, physical vulnerability, or a vulnerability among another member of the household. So they've made the choice, in consultation with me to teach remotely this fall. There will be some students who will actually be in person, and some students will be online in the same course. And this is, of course, a challenging assignment for our faculty colleagues. Hybrid flexible instruction, also called HyFlex. So for instance, if I'm teaching a course with students that are on the campus, there could also be some students who've chosen to take the course who are studying remotely, as I pointed out in the last slide. So our faculty have worked very, very hard this summer to prepare to deliver courses not only in person and with a blending of online, but also dealing with the challenges of teaching in person along with students who are not learning on the campus. And I just want to recognize the incredible effort and work that our faculty have undertaken, largely guided by the Johnson Center for Creative Teaching and Learning and our educational technology team. It's in the library has been also very instrumental in helping our faculty prepare for teaching. I just want to recognize how well and how hard our faculty have worked this summer. I've been in contact with faculty for a variety of reasons, and I've had some really nice conversations and recognize the incredibly hard work they've done this summer to prepare. In order to continue to have good communication between the administration and the faculty, we have established a COVID-19 faculty advisory group. This is a faculty group that includes representatives from each of the divisions of the academic area, natural sciences, mathematics and computer science, social sciences, and interdisciplinary programs, as well as the arts and humanities. And so we have representation from each of those areas. This group has been meeting, if not every week, every other week this summer, and will continue to meet throughout the fall semester so that faculty can share their questions, their concerns, and we can also consult them as we work through the fall semester. So lots of hard work has gone into the preparation for the fall, and I'm just, again, very thankful and proud of our academic team, including the faculty and the academic administrators and staff. With that, I'll pass it on to our next presenter.
Thank you, Provost Zappe. And thank you all for joining this Zoom session and for all of your hard work to prepare for the upcoming academic year. All of information technology has been working together to prepare for the upcoming year. Specifically, we've been working around workshops for faculty, along with the Johnson Center for Creative Teaching and Learning, and also with the library. Physically, we've been doing classroom upgrades, as Provost Zappe mentioned. We have students joining classes in all different formats. So we are currently working to put in video cameras and document cameras to help with that. We've also shut down the computer classrooms and replaced it with new virtual desktop systems. So students can be anywhere in the world or even on campus and be able to log into what we call a virtual desktop, so a virtual computer, instead of actually being in the room itself. We've also, due to de-densification, we've reduced the amount of student printing on campus, and we've been working with faculty to help them have assignments turned in digitally and also graded digitally and returned to help with that reduction in student printing. As far as IT services for employees, we're following this and following the same protocols that we had in the spring. We do have IT employees on campus to help with any computer needs, and also the IT help desk is available on appointment basis. Drop-ins we don't have covered, but if you have any problems, please call the IT help desk. It's available. Everybody's doing a great job there, and we can see and work on computers by appointment. And with that, I will pass it along to Dean Julie Ramsey.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to focus, this first slide focuses on the communications that we have had and the interactions we've had with students prior to their arrival. And so there have been several letters that have gone out to students. We've asked students to self-quarantine if possible for 2 weeks in advance of coming to campus. There's been a pre-screening that we've asked students to do, and they've signed up to complete an online module, educational module about COVID before returning. But probably the most important thing we've asked them to do is to review and sign and agree to the student health requirements, the student health agreement. Not only do we ask them to sign it, we ask them to review it with their parents. We send a copy directly to the parents as well. And these are the agreements that we've been talking about with students, the expectations around wearing a mask, physical distancing, personal hygiene, and perhaps most importantly, or every bit as importantly, no large social gatherings, particularly with alcohol. We need to be very, very focused on educating students about why that is a bad idea, and also responding appropriately if those events occur. And I know many of you think that they will, and they most likely will, and we will have to respond. I don't think there's any question about that. So the question of how you respond if you see students doing things that are in violation of these rules. Darrien talked about how to respond employee to employee, but employee to student, what we'd like you to do, what we hope you will do is, as he mentioned, speak to a student if they're not wearing a mask, if they're not social distancing. If you feel comfortable doing that, please intervene. We need you to intervene. We need you to speak up and say, would you mind going back and getting a mask, especially if they enter your space and especially if they are indoors. Those are the spaces particularly that we want you to be really, really vigilant about if you feel comfortable doing that. If the students don't respond, or if they respond in a way that's, gets to be a problem, feel free to call DPS. But generally, do not call DPS. What we want you to do generally, if you see something happening, is to, as I said, speak to the students. If that doesn't work, we'd like you to fill out a community concern form, which is found on the College Life website. So you'll see, sometimes they're called care forms, and it's an electronic form that comes directly into the College Life office, and we will follow up. So that is the important, I think, information about the enforcement of the student health agreement. So can we go to the next slide? So what's happening, what's been happening the last week, what's happening this week? Last week, we were able to run a pilot of the testing process, and as Bob said, that went extremely well. Today, we are starting the week of move-in. So we have a group of campus leaders moving in today, first year class tomorrow and Wednesday, upper class Thursday and Friday. So this is the baseline testing that we've referred to. We'll be testing between 400 and 450 students a day. They will be quarantined in their rooms until they get the results back, which we expect and did have back last week in less than 48 hours. So we've gotten really good turnaround time on the tests. There were no positive tests last week. Quarantine in their rooms means that they will be restricted essentially to the residence hall, except to come out and pick up their meals and take them back to the residence hall to consume their meals. So the next slide, please. This really talks about the self-screening and testing process. So Darrien mentioned that we'd like employees to do self-screening. Same thing's true for students. We will monitor that through the Medicat system in the health center. PCR testing on arrival. This is what I just mentioned. PCR is the gold standard in testing. It is the highest level of sensitivity and selectivity. In other words, the highest accuracy rate. that can be achieved with current testing availability. So that's what we'll be using. I mentioned that we would be quarantining students. The two companies that we are using are the ones mentioned here. CSI is Contamination Source Identification, a firm that's located in Huntington, Pennsylvania. CIC Health Broad is located in Boston, Massachusetts. And we are very fortunate to have not one, but two companies that are promising and have delivered a very, very quick turnaround. We will be repeating the original test, the original baseline test. We'll be repeating it within 5 to 6 days for those from the hotspot states. Again, Darrien mentioned those. And then we'll be testing everyone again within 14 days. The ongoing, what we call surveillance testing, will include people who are symptomatic, high-risk populations, such as the one mentioned on the slide, and including some random people. The tests of 100 a week, that is probably the minimum of what we will be doing. Could come up considerably if the test availability continues to be available and the turnaround time continues to be what we've seen. Next slide, please. Student contact tracing. So this is the process that occurs after a student is identified, is tested as positive, okay? So if a student tests positive, first thing we do is initiate contact tracing. So we'll be asking the student who they've been in close contact with. Close contact means they've been within 6 feet of a person for more than 10 minutes. The health center and others, athletic trainers, res life staff have all been certified to conduct the contact tracing. Then students will be need to be isolated. They will be given the opportunity to go home if they can do that safely. If they cannot, then we have reserved over 115 rooms have been reserved both on campus and in local hotels for the possibility of isolation and quarantine. During isolation, students will have hopefully be able to take their classes remotely, and there will be delivery to their door of food from the dining center. Quarantine means that's reserved for the people who are close contacts, who've been identified as close contacts or who are waiting for test results. So they will quarantine in either their room, their individual room, or a hotel, one of the hotel rooms we've mentioned, and the same thing applies on classes and food. There will be a care manager from the health center assigned to every student who is in isolation, and they will be doing, at a minimum, daily health checks. Darrien mentioned this, but I'll put a finer point on it. There will be a weekly campus status update. We will be publishing an update on all the positive cases, employees and students. We will be publishing additional information and tracking that over the course of the semester. That'll be a weekly update that will be sent to you via email, and we will track positive cases in that way. The college has also established alert levels and appropriate responses given every alert level. So let's say that we should see a spike in cases, then we have a list of possible remedies or actions we would take to respond to that scenario. So that's what the alert levels and the will represent for us. I know I've talked very quickly, but I want to give other people a chance to do their part. So I'm going to stop here and turn it over to Pete.
Thank you, Julie. Hello, everybody. Just a few quick updates. I know campus mail delivery had changed during the summer, but everything's back to normal. If you do come to the campus post office, you'll see the plexiglass barriers and social distancing. We're installing a contactless package pickup for students. So taking all the mitigation strategies we can for the post office. The college bookstore is open. The sales floor is open. They too have social distancing and limiting the number of people in the store. Students with reserved textbooks can pick them up in Cub 126, but department charge is still open and available for you. Next slide, please. Dining is probably where you'll see most of the changes affecting employees. The atrium this year was part of student dining. We needed the additional capacity given the distancing limitations that we had. But all dining locations are open for employees. If you're an employee that happens to have a meal plan or Getty Gold, please feel free to visit any of the locations. We're working on a Bullet Express app, hopefully be available soon. We're making some minor adjustments to that right now, which would let you order food ahead of time and pick up at the at Bullhole. The Servo Express food truck should be available on campus for lunch, probably in the vicinity of Penn Hall, Schmucker. We've had good luck with that. Catering is still available with a simplified menu, again, with all CDC guidelines in mind. And you'll hear more from them in a minute. Next slide, please. Here's a list of service hours. We've added some locations. It's a little busy here, so I just invite you to go to the dining website, and you'll see times and locations that will be available to you. You just might want to avoid peak meal times if possible, but things should go fairly smoothly. I think that's it for me. I think Jim may be next. Mike, sorry.
That'll be me. Thanks, Pete. Appreciate that. Just want to say hello to everybody and welcome everybody back. Looking forward to seeing everybody back on campus. I know health and safety has been a big discussion point throughout this whole presentation, and we're happy to say that the Jaeger Center and Pool will start opening on August 24th for all of our students and employees. And I know how important it is to be able to work out again, how that is important for the health, physical health and the mental health of everyone. So we're happy to be able to provide a safe and healthy environment for them to continue that. There will be some changes, however. So starting off, you will need to make a reservation for the pool and the fitness classes. These can be found on 25 Live and IM Leagues. And the link can be found to get to these reservation sites on the athletic site under the COVID-19 resource page, which there's a red banner on the top of the athletic department website that can take you directly to those pages. In the Hortensio Fitness Room, the equipment has been spaced out. This obviously is to help with de-densifying of the space, but there's still plenty of dumbbells and other weight equipment, as well as plenty of cardio equipment. We've moved a tent. One of the tents is going to be on the pool patio for spin classes and fitness classes. And again, those are going to be needed to have a reservation. We ask that there be no shared equipment. So the stretching bands, the foam rollers, kickboards in the pool, things you may have had available to you in the past, we're not going to make available. So we're going to ask that people bring their own. And we have a team shop available to purchase those on that same website where the reservations will be to help you order those if you need to bring your own. We will be closing in the mornings for an hour during the week and an hour on the weekends for a deep cleaning. And again, the schedule for all of that can be found on that same website. And we're going to be asking you to wear masks while you're working out inside, unless obviously you are swimming, or again, if you meet any of the requirements for an exception there. Go on to the next slide, please. Again, these are the hours for the fitness center and the pool, and just ask you to go to our website, click on the red banner, and these, along with all the detailed policies, will be on the site. Just go to the next one. So for intercollegiate athletics, those of you may have seen that fall competition has been suspended, and we're going to be able to, thankfully, at least be able to provide our athletic activities for our student athletes, and decisions on what's going to happen with fall sports and winter sports will come later on in the semester. And all of the Centennial Conference member institutions will be getting together during the beginning parts of this semester to determine what those next steps are for those particular teams. As I mentioned, we'll still be able to participate with some significant mitigating practices. Will be small groups. There'll be plenty of physical distancing. There's going to be a slow phase-in approach for our athletes as we hopefully, should public health conditions allow, build up into some competition later on. Obviously, our coaches will still be able to provide the personal development, the well-being, and the leadership program that they typically provide to our teams. Many of it, though, will be done virtually now. For our club sports, their competition has been suspended as well. Again, similar to the intercollegiate athletes, they'll be able to get together in small groups with all the mitigating factors. And campus rec still will be able to provide programming with a similar phased-in approach with small groups, and all activity will be done outside. So with that, I will turn it over to Jim Biesecker.
All right, thanks, Mike. And I too want to welcome everyone back. It's great starting to see everyone coming back to campus and seeing the campus, a lot of activity on campus. The facilities team has done an awesome job this summer, ensuring that all campus facilities are ready for the return of students and staff for the fall semester. All spaces have been thoroughly cleaned as part of our normal summer preparation for the fall. We've also had to adjust our housekeeping schedules, as we've talked about before, for the fall to keep up with some of this enhanced cleaning. So if you remember from previous conversations, most academic and administrative buildings will see a staff member at least twice a day, once for the general cleaning and another time for the disinfecting process that we have at the high touch points in the building. Smaller buildings will see a coverage at least once a day, 5 days a week. As Darrien mentioned, personal offices are still only being cleaned once a week, so we do ask you to use the supplies that we have provided to wipe down your space and within your personal office. And you'll see them in baskets in your office space, and you also see baskets in your classroom spaces as well. Julie mentioned in her presentation about the times when you may encounter someone who doesn't have a mask or wearing a mask. Each of the baskets that we have in the classrooms and the offices will have a few disposable masks that if you wish to offer it to a person who does not have one, you can do that, and they'll be provided in those baskets. We've worked very closely with our campus engineers to assess the building mechanical systems to make sure all the necessary adjustments to allow additional outside air where we can into the spaces and service the buildings and service the systems. We reduced the capacity in our lobbies, lounges, meeting rooms, classroom spaces to support the physical distancing requirements. These adjustments to the spaces, especially in the classrooms, has led us to converting some many traditional meeting and program spaces into classrooms. So you'll see classes in the attic, the multi-purpose room at Jaeger, some of the Cub meeting rooms, even the Lyceum will have classes this fall. We've made efforts to reduce some of the common touch points in the buildings. Most noticeably is going to be the water fountains. We've turned off the water fountains, disabled the traditional side of the water fountain. We've added more bottle refill stations where possible that can support it without having to touch any part of the water fountain. Plexiglass has been installed all around campus. We've installed signage within the buildings to promote the health and safety protocols, tell you which direction to enter the buildings, which direction to leave the buildings. As has been mentioned before, we've added several tents to campus to give everyone an additional outdoor options for meetings, for classrooms, dining, seating, fitness classes. Our goal is to try and get people outside. We even added some additional outdoor furniture to do that as well. So these changes that we've put in place provide, our goal is to provide our employees and our students safe working, living, and learning environments on campus. All right, next slide. So as we've, people have been coming back, we've been fielding questions, kind of those common questions. I want to address some of them. Space assessment, we've been in most of the office suites. I made adjustments. If you still have questions as you're coming back, whether something needs to be assessed, whether you need to move some furniture or you need more plexiglass, please work that through our service response center and put a work order in. We'll assign someone to come over. Ventilation questions, a lot of questions around opening of windows. We actually discourage people from opening windows, and especially in our large traditional spaces. Those systems are designed to bring fresh air in automatically, and opening of windows actually creates some more air quality challenges, especially on humid days like we've been seeing. There are some places that we do recommend they open windows. We've provided some air purifiers, and there's some of our smaller office buildings that are more residential systems, and we've communicated with them directly, so they're aware if they are supposed to open the windows. Meetings on campus, I think it's been said before. We emphasize to try and use Zoom meetings as much as possible. If you do need to meet in person, the process is still the same. Work through 25 Live. The changes to capacity have been adjusted on those on that system, so you know how many people can fit in the new in one of the new configurations. Using the tents, same thing with working through 25 Live. They're all on that system as well. Transportation services will be working this fall. As was mentioned, we're following the college guidelines around approval for the travel process first, and once it's approved, we'll be ready to roll with safety protocols in place for the vehicle capacity, face masks, cleaning supplies, anything to make that trip and that travel safe. Changes in employee parking. You've seen some of this come out through DPS in the last couple of days. One of the locations for tents is the Constitution parking lot. We've got 4 tents down there on the one end of the parking lot. That has impacted the parking in that lot. So a change that has been made is the entire Constitution lot is for employee parking. Students will, who typically would have parked in that lot, will be asked to park in other student parking. And the new lot next is the Central Energy Plant, which is Constitution West parking, will also be for student parking for the fall semester as well. Next slide, please. So as we've been saying, there's changes to buildings, changes to schedules. Everything on this slide can be found on the Better Together website under campus operations. Academic buildings are not mentioned on here, but we do continue to offer some 24-hour buildings. Science Center, Schmucker Hall, and the West Building are places where students can still go the 24 hours, but the rest of them hours have been changed or reduced, really to assist us in cleaning and preparing the buildings for the next day. Next slide. Musselman Library, same thing. They have adjusted a lot of their schedule for the fall semester, and once again to give us a little more time to clean and prepare in between when the building opens and when it closes. Card swipe is going to be required for everyone entering the building, and it's open to the students, faculty, staff, and retirees. It's been mentioned before about printing has moved. Printing locations have moved to the basement of ground level Gladfelder Hall. And I think I will now turn it over to Rich Keeling.
Thanks very much, and good morning, all. I'll join others in welcoming you back to campus at Gettysburg. And as a consultant for the past 3 or 4 months, I feel very much part of Gettysburg and very happy to be so, and happy to have many of us coming back to campus. My job this morning is to talk to you really about 4 things. First is what we're trying to achieve about health and safety, the well-being of students, faculty, and staff at Gettysburg. Second, how we're going to do that, the risk mitigation protocols that we'll use. Third, what if we have to change our minds? What are the things that might stimulate a different decision or a change in some part of our decisions about being in person in the coming academic year? And then finally, a sort of overview of how Gettysburg is doing compared to other colleges facing this same challenge. So first, I'll talk about our health and safety goals. There are really 3 of them. One is, of course, we want to prevent infection with COVID-19. Second, if it occurs, we want to find it quickly and early. And third, once we found it, we want to contain it, that is, prevent it from spreading further. On the next slide, you'll see how we hope for those things to happen. And I'll note that many of the things I'll mention here are reminders of points that Julie and Jim and others have made earlier in this session. But just look at the list for a moment, and this is a comprehensive risk mitigation strategy. Certainly residential and academic de-densification, fewer students concentrated in larger spaces, some revisions of the academic delivery system that you've heard about from Chris and others, very important behavior requirements about distancing, about wearing masks. These things have to become part of our everyday lives whenever we're in public. Restricting the size of gatherings, a key public health need. To support that, there'll be a lot of education. There is the pledge that students will sign, which implies not just being part of a community, but really taking responsibility and accountability for the health and well-being of the community. That will be rigorously enforced, as you've heard about. And then this point of early detection of infection through screening and testing that Julie described, including all the forms of testing that she went into, already beginning, of course, as students are arriving. Contact tracing will be an important step. Julie talked about that as well. And that is the key, really, to containment, recognizing infection before people even realize they have it, and then using quarantine and isolation to contain those infections. We want to particularly prevent outbreaks, and especially the kinds of outbreaks you've been reading about in the public media, things where students get together and have parties, too many people, too small a space, too much alcohol, too little regard for the well-being of themselves and others. We have to prevent those. And if they happen, we have to react strongly and quickly. Finally, we have to be sure to protect people who are vulnerable, which could be any of us. It could be a student, could be a member of the faculty, or a member of the staff. And all of these strategies are in place and ready as students begin to return. On the next slide, though, we talk about what we call contingencies. Suppose it would happen, and there have been questions in the chat box about what exactly these contingencies might be, and they'll be posted on the website soon. But notice the kinds of things we'll be following. National and state case data, what we call 3-day averages for the numbers of infections and hospitalizations, the availability of intensive care unit beds and ventilators, and of course, sadly, deaths. But we'll be also following any positive cases occurring here on campus or nearby, comparing those to what's happening elsewhere. We'll be assessing our own internal capacity to do what we need to do. Trustworthy testing, making sure that's available, that we have the staffing to do it, processing, and the turnaround time doesn't begin to increase. We want to be sure that we do have the right people and the right numbers of them to do contact tracing, and then that we have similarly the right numbers of rooms available for quarantine and isolation. There are supply chains to monitor. There are adherence and compliance requirements that we'll have to keep a very close eye on. But we also have to be sure that the academic experience of students remains strong, that the distinctive residential Gettysburg liberal arts education is still what we deliver. And finally, we have to be sure that everyone is comfortable, faculty, staff, all of us, and students as well, comfortable with the experience and that they feel safe being together here at the college. On my final slide, you'll see an overview of how Gettysburg has been doing as it makes its plans. First thing to say, of course, is that a sterile campus is unlikely. And if it happened, it's not sustainable. People come, people go, there's mixing of types of people. It's very unlikely that Gettysburg College would have absolutely no one with COVID-19. Therefore, we have to be careful for all the reasons we just talked about. Put in place all the risk mitigation strategies we talked about. And then we have to be willing to second guess ourselves. That is to make careful decisions and then revisit those decisions. I've been in a lot of your President's Council meetings, a lot of implementation and planning committee meetings, watching and participating in exactly that very rigorous form of second guessing. All of these risk mitigation plans, if they are followed cautiously and courageously, two important words, cautiously and courageously, That'll enable the college to achieve the health and safety goals that we've set. That means the experience is going to be very different. Everyone knows that. Students are aware of that. We're aware of it too. And we will continue as we move into the semester to discover new questions, what if questions, some of which won't have clear solutions, and we'll make the very best decisions we can based on the best evidence and data we can obtain. So we will continue to do monitoring of all of these contingencies. We will pivot, as people say these days, if we have to, and that planning for pivoting requires patience and diligence and leadership. I feel very confident, having participated in many of these meetings at Gettysburg, that that kind of patience, diligence, and leadership are not only present, but are valued and reinforced here. And I think, therefore, that Gettysburg, compared to other institutions, has done at least as well as the best of them and better than many of them. Nobody has developed better strategies to manage or mitigate risk. And I'm confident as we head into the semester that Gettysburg will continue to monitor the situation to be sure that we still make the best decisions going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Folks, we do have a few minutes for questions. I also want to note that in the Q&A function, if you open up the Q&A function, you can actually see some of the questions that have been answered. At the top of that Q&A window, there's an answer link. And if you click on that, many of our panelists have been answering questions that have been coming in. So let's get to some questions. Julie, I'd like to turn to you first. You did talk about the student health agreement. Can you tell us what happens if a student doesn't sign the health agreement?
A student who doesn't sign the health agreement will not be permitted to take the test. And if you don't take the test, you cannot enter the college. So you can't, you won't be permitted to move in. You'll have to revert to remote learning if that's an option for them.
Thanks, Julie. I know a number of you talked about masks. We do have a couple of specific questions about masks. Jim and/or Darrien, this question came in. I'm a member of the grounds crew. My day-to-day work is as active as an outdoor exercise where students do not need to wear a mask. Do I need to wear a mask?
Jim, you want to address that, or you want to?
Yeah, I can address it if you want to chime in after that. You know, we've been reviewing those questions. I mean, we obviously come up, hear them frequently about outdoor work, even work in places that are hot buildings on campus, people who work in air-conditioned buildings, people work in kitchens. You know, we do require the mask to continue to be worn. We have continued to assess the type of masks, reusable, washable masks that we distribute to our employees. And have made adjustments, but we feel that you need to be consistent and continue to wear the mask as we're asking others on campus to do, even outside, even in hot locations.
Yes, and if there's, you know, an issue with the mask, something that's not working well, you know, reach out to your supervisor, reach out to human resources. Let's try to see if there are other types. There are a lot of masks. There are a lot of different types of masks. There are folks that are wearing kind of the full neck gaiter. There's so many different variations of a mask to try to keep folks safe. So please reach out. You know, if you have just one mask and it's not working for you, let's talk through that. Let's work through that to see what we can do to try to accommodate you.
Thanks, Darrien. And that's a perfect segue into my last question about masks. Rich, I want to turn to you. And could you just briefly describe what an appropriate face covering and/or mask is?
Sure. Appropriate face covering is one of the cloth masks, such as this one that I'm just showing you. And these cloth masks are adequate and appropriate for the needs that we face. They are much better than and recommended over things like bandanas, which don't provide sufficient protection. They are sufficient, and we don't require medical and surgical masks, the kinds of things that you see healthcare personnel wearing. We certainly don't need the respirators, the N95 masks that some healthcare workers, public safety personnel, and first responders need. These masks are essential. We don't need anything more special than these. Face shields, by the way, are not adequate by themselves. Face shields can be combined with masks in certain situations. We are waiting to see if there is data to support the use of so-called clear masks that look like this, except they have a clear plastic center in the middle to let you see people's lips rather. It's not possible for us to recommend those yet because they've not proven to be effective.
Thank you, Rich. Chris, I'd like to pivot to the academic side briefly. What happens if a faculty member gets sick? Who will teach their courses and how will that be handled?
If a faculty member would be become ill and is not able to assume his duties in the classroom, then our office, the divisional dean, most likely will work with the department chair to identify someone who might be able to serve as a substitute for that instructor as she or he recovers.
Thank you, Chris. Mike, I want to turn to you. We got a question about the cleanliness of equipment in the Jaeger Center. How will we ensure that students are maintaining the cleanliness of that equipment?
As our policy has always been, even before COVID-19, we ask all of those faculty, students, and staff that utilize the Jaeger Center to clean their equipment after each use. There'll be plenty of sanitation stations spaced throughout for that use. So after each time you use it, please clean it. Plus, as I mentioned, we're going to do an extra hour of cleaning throughout the course of the day. Our staff who will be utilizing will be going around and cleaning throughout the day. We've also now got through Jim an electrostatic sprayer, which at the end of every evening will go and spray down all of the equipment in the entire gym. So we're confident that we will have a clean facility. And just like we're asking all our employees and students to do with their desks in the classrooms and in their office space to clean it down after the use, we're asking the same thing in the Jaeger Center.
Thanks, Mike. And just one more follow-up question regarding the Jaeger Center. Will employee family members be allowed to use the center at some time soon?
At this time, dependents and retirees will not be able to use the Jaeger Center. We are following the Pennsylvania guidelines as to the capacity in the building, and we want to ensure that our students on campus and faculty and staff that are working be able to access that first. Should those guidelines be loosened a little bit and we're allowed to have more people in the space, then we will look to add the dependents and retirees.
Thank you, Mike. Jim Biesecker, I want to turn to you briefly. We have a specific question about a specific facility. Will the Cub Ballroom be available for events?
Presently, the Cub Ballroom is reserved for overflow dining seating and even for dining to serve meals during the day. So it is offline for the fall semester. I was reading that same question. I think the other thing that plays into this answer is that presently the state of PA does not allow more than 25 people to gather for meetings and events, not for classes, but for meetings like that. So that we'll have to continue to monitor those situations through the semester, because I think this was a reference to a spring event, but it is offline for the fall semester.
Thank you, Jim. Julie, I have a couple of questions for you that came in. First one is, will students be able to visit friends off campus who follow mask and social distancing guidelines?
Only if their friends live in the Gettysburg area.
And a quick follow-up to that, will any effort be made to discourage students from going into town?
No, we have indicated to students that they are free to travel in the Gettysburg area. They must remain in the Gettysburg area, except there are a few exceptions if students are for employment, for health reasons, and for emergencies, in which case they would need to register with us before traveling outside the Gettysburg area.
Thank you. We have a couple more. Bob, I want to turn to you. This question came in. What is the current financial picture of the college, considering all of the extra expenses for COVID?
Well, as you'd expect, we're not alone in facing significant financial consequences from the pandemic. It started in the spring with the refund of room and board. We've talked about that. But for us, the judgments we were making have been very much driven by mission, as I've said at the introduction of my comments. It seemed important to us to bring the students back together and to do what we needed to do in order to do that safely. It will turn out, by the way, that is still less expensive than not having them come back, but that has not been a material factor to us. Our judgment has been, as a matter of mission, we want the students back, and we were going to spend what we needed to spend to do so safely for the students, for all of you, the faculty, for the community as a whole. And as Dr. Keeling said, we have been following the public health recommendations. We're going to have work to do, folks, as a result of the significant financial challenges the pandemic has imposed on all of higher education. I expect to have more to say about that as the fall semester gets underway. But right now, I would urge that our focus be on getting folks back to campus, getting them back safely, doing what Darrien said at the outset, and that is to meet our aspirations as a community of looking out for one another.
Great, thank you, Bob. And final question, Rich, we're going to turn to you. What makes now different than March?
Now is very different than March. Remember back in March, we were just getting started and making our initial observations about this pandemic and how COVID-19 was spread. You may remember back then there were visible disagreements among good public health people in conferences and updates and sessions from DC about who thought we needed to do more of this and who thought we needed to do more of that, even about things like wearing masks or using social distancing. In these 5 months that's passed now since March, we've learned a great deal. And interestingly and importantly, what we've learned primarily has solidified our understanding of how COVID-19 is transmitted from one person to another. What now is clear is that the major means of transmission is from person to person by respiratory droplets and aerosols, which means that social distancing is extremely important. Wearing masks is extremely important. And avoiding large gatherings, especially but not only indoors, is extremely important. You've seen stories about college students early on being infected. In every case of those stories, the means of that infection was a large gathering among athletes or fraternity brothers or others who got together for parties indoors. That's what we have to avoid. And what we've learned, happily, is that there is no means of transmitting this virus that we did not expect. It's been clarified, we have secure knowledge, so we know what risks to mitigate.
Great, thank you, Rich. Before I turn it back over to President Iuliano for closing remarks, I would like to thank our panelists for their time and continued work towards our campus opening. Please continue to check the Better Together website for updates, correspondence, and general information. And if you didn't have your question answered today, please send it to fallreturn@gettysburg.edu. Thank you again. And President Iuliano, I'll turn it over to you one final time for closing remarks.
Jim, thank you. And again, let me echo the thanks to the panelists and to the 300 and some odd people who joined us today. I hope you have come to see the substantial amount of work that people across the campus have undertaken to bring back our students as safely as we possibly can. I want to again reiterate that judgments we have been making have been informed by medical and public health professionals. That has been an essential aspect of all that we have done here. We're ultimately in this together, folks, and it is really a sign of this community and a sign of our commitment to one another that we look out for one another over the course of the fall, that we recognize that we are better together, but being better together requires that we meet the requirements that we've outlined. So let us work together as a community. Let us meet these high aspirations that we have. Let us support one another. Let us advance the mission of this college as effectively as we possibly can. I'm grateful again for all that you have done and all that you will do. I'm looking forward to working together with all of you over the course of this unusual fall semester. And I'm actually very much looking forward to saying hello through a mask across campus over the course of the coming week. So thank you all for joining us today, and take care.